All right, so going beyond best practices, my name's Woody Adams. Here I am, longtime QuickBooks Pro Advisor, certified in QBO currently. I no longer do the desktop certifications, though I still support both platforms and have QBA and Enterprise. A lot of experience with both of those assets, have them installed yearly, but mostly I'm in QBO. Right? I've been with Intuit since 2004. Been using QB Desktop since 03 and QBO since 09. And also I do with Stacy Kildall this weekly podcast, The QBO Show. You can find out more about that, radiofreeqb.com. And then there's a link to the matrix too. It compares, spreadsheet you can just view. It compares a bunch of feature sets across, all QuickBooks products. So that can be helpful too when you're trying to consult with your clients. I mean, that's what it's about for me. What makes it faster for you to consult to your clients and you have to go digging around to research for information, okay? I feel like that's my role, right? Anyway, in product, this is what we're going to do. We're going to dive right in, starting with product-based business focus. Don't worry about the names of the files. That's just for me because I have no short-term memory. So I'm going to be in my own file. I'll be using QBO Plus. We'll be going through inventory and related settings and activities, the list, categories, reorder points. We're going to look at all this stuff at a high level. I know it looks overwhelming, but my goal is it be some sort of reasonable workflow, just so you know it's there, right? That's my goal. I mean, for deeper dives, we have other videos for that, or we can do a one-on-one or something on it, but just want to make sure building awareness about, hey, QBO Plus can do this. So we're going to look at the FIFO inventory or even reporting, price rules, which is in beta, in the bundle item, group item. Sometimes you want to use that. Then we'll move over to service-based type businesses. Not that they wouldn't do inventory too, but still, in my mind, this is how I put it together. Pass-through time, material expense. You can do that all day long. Two-sided items. All that's supported. Even estimate to invoice, and we have progress invoicing in a real small beta. I'll show that kind of at the end of that section. Make sure you're aware of the delayed charge form. It's also another non-posting form you can leverage. It's great for service businesses. It's not really in a setting per se, but it's there. And then, there's a couple job cost methods. Using a budget, I have something simple set up so I can show you. However, for your residential and commercial contractors, when they want to be mobile and going QBO, I do encourage Notify as a third-party app, because that's just going to be way faster visibility to estimate to actual, which we just don't support yet, right? Sure, there's a workaround. I'll show you a little bit of that. Great Stacy Kildall method. We even have a 15-minute video on it if you want to dive deep. But for me, I just think it's easier to go with a third-party app when it gets to that need, that sophistication for your residential contractors. So Notify, K-N-O-W-I-F-Y is a great one, and then CoreCon for commercial contractors. And these are just a couple of the hundreds of apps that integrate with QBO to expand on functionality that's not there, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be showing build assemblies because it's not in QBO Plus, right? We don't even have unit of measure, or sales order fulfillment workflow. So I'm pretty fair and honest about the product and the gaps, right? So I just want to show what's in it from an advanced standpoint. But then when I know you're like, well, what about this? That's going to be a third party, and I'll be happy to suggest them. So you can ask questions on that too. And then finally, I want to look at class tracking, particularly around, there's no viable balance sheet by class. Why? Yes, you can do a P&L by class all day long. What's the difference between class and location tracking? And then how do I name my clients as donors? So that's what we're going to cover. I know it's a lot, and then I wanted to show these links to upcoming webinars. Tomorrow, Valerie's doing a great one, Valerie Heckman on bank feeds, and then we have some stuff, other things too that might be interesting to you, as well as links, particularly tutorials for your clients and training for your clients if you don't have the time to do it. Fair enough? So that's the deck that you can go ahead and download. Right. But hopefully you're seeing my screen, right? I'm in Planet Pause Pet Supplies. This is one of the files we're going to be in for today, and we're looking at inventory and related activities to that. So I like to start out with settings. That's okay. Under the gear icon, as you know, this is your operational area. This is like edit preferences right now. Okay, yes, we're going to go to the products and services list, which is our items list. Here, you're going to go to sales for inventory type stuff. And you can do two-sided items. We'll talk about that as well. But I'm going to show that more in the job costing section. But for inventory, really, it's just one setting. There's a couple related ones, but you go to sales. It's not even in advanced, right? It's just sales, and it's in this products and services section, track, quantity, and price on hand. and track inventory quantity on hand. This is the one. You check this box, it turns on FIFO inventory. It's first in, first out valuation method. It's not average cost, it's not LIFO or any others, standard cost, things like that. If you need that, that's where an app like SOS Inventory is excellent for. But you just turn it on, Plus is going to have it, Essentials is not. Interestingly enough, because we just added like the general ledger report and trial balance report to Simple Start. So Simple Start's going to become more viable to firms for their clients who don't need all this stuff, right? But sometimes you need two-sided items. I might as well show that because it's product-based business. So I've turned this on. That's one thing. This is inventory. We're going to look at that. Price rules I'm also going to go at before we move into the job costing piece. It's in beta, but it is price levels. And if you're used to QuickBooks Premier, where you can do like a fixed percentage as well as like a custom price per item, that's what this price rules is. So it's not even like the Pro, just bare essential fixed percent price level. It's more the Premier level, which I kind of like for that. So that's in beta, but all your clients in Plus should have that. And then you can add a SKU. I mean, if you're tracking SKUs or a manufacturer part number, you can check that off. And some people use that because, again, it's just another field. That's awesome, so I could report on it, right? So sometimes you got to think that way too. I don't really need to track SKU, but I want to track like color or model number. Turn SKU on. Okay. So anyway, those are the available things. One thing I wanted to go to the expense tab. And then I did want to mention two-sided items. That's the other thing for non-inventory parts. Or like an appliance or something like that. It's not inventory, that you're going to want to use the same item on like a purchase form as well as what you sell. Right? Plus is the one that has that. Essentials has single-sided items, and that's supported. Simple Start is single-sided. But like my sleeper hit for Plus, like why would my client need a Plus? Because both service and product-based businesses want double-sided items, and that's what you might have called it in desktop, right? So similar things, you would just check off this box, show items table on expense and purchase forms. And then, these other two are more for the job costing, pass-through time and expense. We'll come back here. But anyway, you want to check off that. And I like going to sales and checking off the inventory piece. Now that we have that done, that's pretty much it for settings that require for this inventory thing or two-sided items. Inventory we know as a three-sided item, of course. Okay, so I'm going to go back to gear icon because, again, I'm a creature of habit too, but you can get to the products and service list as well from your sales, tab in the left-hand panel. Actually, let me go to all lists first. And you'll see these like products and services, and we'll see categories and price rules. There'll be sub-items. Right? SKU you'll see in the item record itself. Right? Now, categories, these are like how do you want to divvy up your items? And this is another list element that's helpful from a reporting and when you're searching stuff on a form in a field. You can search by category. So I have this Planet Paws Pet Shop and Boarding Company. Right, so we have several different departments, if you will. Notice I'm not using class or location tracking in this case, because I'll be using it for something else. I use categories because when I go to my products and service list, I like to visualize it by the different departments. Cat treats, dog and cat toys. Here's my items list, right? Let me make it a little bigger for you all in case it's a little small. Dog attire. Some of this is humorous, but you know what I mean. Pet furniture. But it's real. You got a dog or cat. You're buying this stuff. And then I got some staff or administrative type items, and then services or treatments that we provide, boarding and things like that, right? So I like that because I can then filter by the category. So I could look at just, say, cat accessories or maybe, dog attire or something like that and click apply, and it's going to just show me those inventory parts and those items. So we got the dog leash standard there, right? Now, you might have noticed a few things about this window that you haven't seen before because maybe your clients aren't tracking inventory. Oh, you can track stock? Yeah, you can track out of stock and low stock. There's a reorder point you can set on the item. We'll go into dog leash in a sec and do that. But the more tab here, right? This is where you manage your categories. Very helpful to get back there. Also, I can filter by look at category and look at those that are uncategorized. Because at first when you turn categories on and you start creating some, most of your products and services will be uncategorized, right? So in a batch, you can go ahead and check off a bunch that are uncategorized and put them in the appropriate, assign a category to them, which is really nice. Again, for me, it's more about filtering the items list because I only have like 100 items, but your clients might have a couple thousand in here, and being able to filter by a category, I think, is really important. You can always clear the filter, right? And, you can filter other things on this list too, the type of item, whether it's because there's 4 types, right? Even though we call them products and services, there's 4 types when you go create a new one. Inventory, non-inventory, service, and bundle. And I will be talking about the bundle, at the end of the product service section, because I think it's important. It's akin to a group item. A lot of contractors use it. It's where you can, like, on the sales transaction, just show the bundle item and not all the components. It's not a build assembly, but not all the components that make it up. And that's helpful when, you're doing a bid or a contract or something like that, right? So it's the same kind of trick you could use. We just call it bundle over here. All right, let's look at a particular item I think I had canned up for this. We'll do one that doesn't have a lot of stock in it, low stock. And by the way, when you click new, you can import items, right? But when you click a new item, these are the options, just to make sure. Okay, you're good, right? In non-inventory, again, let me quickly, before I go back, and I apologize for those who, I kind of tend to tangent sometimes when I think of things that are important to point out while I'm thinking about it, because I know I'm going to forget it anyway. So I apologize for that. Appreciate your patience. Try to bear with me and try to make it as a reasonable workflow as I can. But when you're doing like a service item or a non-inventory part, right, here is where you turn on that two-sided item, right? So plus allows me to do that. So this one item I'm creating can hit sales of product revenue and cost of goods sold. I can use it on a check as well as an invoice or sales receipt, right? If your clients are going to want that, if they're in essentials, they don't have that ability. Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, so low stock. Let's do the red rubber ball, right? And I'm going to edit it just to show you what this looks like, because inventory is 3-sided items, just like in desktop. Again, first in, first out valuation method, not average cost. But I have, the red rubber ball, the SKU number. Again, some people can use that for different warehouses, though we're not really tracking items by location, but sometimes they'll use either category to track different locations and assign the items to a different warehouse. Not that I can do a transfer or something, right? It's not like the enterprise advanced inventory functionality or whatever, but still helpful from a reporting or list standpoint. Use these available fields you might not care about for what they were really designed to be, just like you would do in desktop, right? Using those sub-lists for other things, for other metrics. Okay. So, because there's only so many lists. So once you know how you want the report to look like, what lists am I going to leverage to get me there the fastest? Really, that's how I see QuickBooks in general. Okay? So I have SKU as another, I could use it as a manufacturing part number. I just have a SKU number because I can search by it and filter reports by it. Yes, you can attach pictures to items, which is nice, and you can assign it to a category. We'll go over quantity adjustments and starting value adjustments in a second, but here's where like the reorder point is. So the quantity on hand is 47. It's not out of stock, but that's why it's low, right? So I can do a reorder point, fairly new in QBO, and it's in Plus, and it only really impacts the inventory items, but it's still pretty cool. And then I have sales price, it's taxable, and then I have the purchase information, cost of goods sold. Different from desktop where we have purchase on the left, and then you have sales on the right, and then below that you have the inventory stuff, right, or two-sided items or left-right. We have it up-down, sales up top, purchasing down. But you'll get used to the visual over time. Now, price rules, I do have some price rules. We'll get to that in a second. You can create them, and I want to show that as well. But I just wanted to give you an overview of what the edit, item looks like there. Now, real quick, I can do a quantity adjustment. Though I want to do a purchase order, receive it, and sell it, and then look at a report. That's what we're going to do today. You can make quantity adjustments within QuickBooks Online Plus. And it is a transaction. I mean, before you had to edit the item record and change the amount, but you couldn't go back a certain period of time before today. So it's kind of limiting. But it would still show up as an inventory adjustment. But now we have, and for a while, but now we have this its own transaction event is this quantity adjustment. So, the new quantity is going to be 25 for whatever reason, shrinkage or what have you. You choose the offsetting account. You can even tag a class to it if you want to, or a location, and we'll get to that, towards the end. And then you save and close, and then I have that inventory adjustment, right? And then on any transaction, including the inventory adjustment, you can do the transaction journal, which is kind of an advanced concept, but this is your Control Y report. But in any transaction, if you're not sure what it's doing, and I don't think we cover this in the 101, but I always like to mention it at least once, is that you can come in and see what was debited and credited. So that inventory adjustment did the appropriate thing, right? It debited inventory shrinkage, right? And then, which is like a COGS account, if you will, COGS type or expense, should be. And then inventory assets credited, right? That's what should happen. That's typical. Okay. So back to the products and services list and filter by the out of stock. The other thing I like about the stock and the reorder points is that I can check all these off, and if they have the same vendor, because we just have some big, this client has just one big pet vendor they typically purchase from. All right, so you can do a batch purchase or adjust quantity, reorder, but bear with me here, I know it's important. Someone's probably liking this. And then you choose the big pet vendor, and you can purchase what you want. Now, we also do partial receiving now as well. So when you hover over the amount too, I can see the quantity on hand. I see that I have 25, remember, because I just made that adjustment. The reorder point's 100, right? So I know that I need, for this, I need like at least 75 more. So I can kind of do that as I'm mousing over each line and see, what I need. We'll do, 9 of these or 10 of these. And then this too, we'll do another 10 or whatever. And that's my purchase order, non-posting transaction. But I can partially receive against it on a bill, which is really important too. And that's also important. So if I copied a bill, let's say the normal workflow, or you could go to a bill and pull in the purchase order, we'll copy this to a bill, I can, choose that I'm only receiving, 50 of these, we'll say, and 5 of these, et cetera, and 5 of these, and the PO will stay open. Right? But it'll just close those particular lines. So, which I really like. The fact that we have the ability to partially receive against purchase orders, you can remove the link as well or delete the line or force close the PO. Anything blue will bring you back to where you were, your breadcrumbs, right? So I have $304, and then I have received, it's not closed yet. So now I know I have, 24 more to receive, et cetera. So the partial PO receivement I wanted to mention as well. Now, still, we have received some, which is nice, and that's good. You see the partial PO. Now, the next thing, let's just quickly sell some. All right, we'll go to a sales receipt. Someone's just coming in, and they're going to purchase some of those things. We'll say it was for Mike, and he's going to come in. Now, I can search by a category as well, or something particular that I want, like, dog treats or something like that. I can do dog leash attire. He came in and bought 2 of them, etc., right? Typical things will happen behind the scenes, so I have that. And that's basically what you're doing. This is going to decrement inventory now. It'll keep track of the quantity on hand, and you can go through and turn off the columns that you don't want. Okay? Then finally, for reporting regarding inventory, if you go to all reports and you have more products in inventory, we have evaluation detail and summary, as well as complementary, the sales by product service detail and summary reports, which is really helpful. And you can filter a lot of reports by not even category, but SKU or product and service too. You can even do a P&L filtered by product and service for profitability by item. That's where the two-sided items really comes into play. Right? That's why your clients would want plus. So my inventory valuation detail, right? We'll just show the FIFO cost, the quantity on hand, the asset value. See if we got something from today specifically that we can show. There we go. Red rubber ball. That was from the inventory adjustment. And you can drill down on any of these things. Right? But notice that the column is going to be FIFO cost, not average cost. It's going to be first in, first out valuation method. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show around before we get to two-sided items, pass-through time and expense, more the job cost, can be a good segue. But price tools and the bundle item. Okay. So just to go back to the products and services list, and I'm going to filter by the particular type, just so you know it's there. I have a bundle item, click apply, and I have this groom and board, right? Now, it's not a build assembly, so the total amount, either the cost or the revenue that you're going to see is going to be made up, calculated by the quantity of the component parts of this bundle. Okay, and I can't change that except I can on the form, right? But what's nice about the group item is that if someone brings, Rover to stay with us for the long weekend, all they'll see is, the sales info, required for grooming and groom and board, and the amount. Because I'm not displaying the bundle components when printing or sending transactions. That's an important thing to know, that you can actually prevent that. That's why contractors love this, because they don't want to see all the phases of the job. They want to see what they're going to do, the description, and then the amount, and that's what they're agreeing to, all the component stuff and non-inventory parts and all that. They don't need to see that. But I want to see it on the screen. Right. So I have, one quantity for boarding, one grooming, 12 milk bone we throw in, and then the doggy shampoo and style, and there's a particular price for that. So when I go to a particular transaction for that, for the groom and board, that's what you'll see, but it won't actually print out. And again, you can do a quick search on all this stuff as well. But I have the description, and then I have the subcomponents here that my customer won't see. They'll just see at least 3 days required for groom and boarding, gooding. They're dropping off Friday. They're picking up Monday morning or Sunday night. Perfect. $287.70, $278.70 or whatever. Right. So group item, excellent for that kind of stuff, and hopefully you see a reason for that there. And then lastly, I want to go quickly to the price rules list. This is in beta. You can turn it on in that sales section as well. I just created one, I think, for today. And it's really like price levels. You can have it be like Pro or Premier in that you can make custom items. So I did a Beyond Basics discount. It's going to run from today through the end of January because I think that's when these webinars end. And it's for all customers, though I could choose specific ones if I want to. It's for all products and services, though I could make it just, service items or inventory or non-inventory or by category. This discount could, or this price level, if you will, or promo that I'm currently doing for the next 3 weeks could just be for dog and cat toys, right? And then I can do a percentage or a fixed amount or a custom per price. I did a decrease by 15%. You can round. That's available and apply. And then when I applied it, here's what the prices are going to be when you actually apply the discount to the items. So 15% that I'm showing down. And then so when I go to, see here it is, so I got 6, 5, 10, right? So now that I'm on the one on 111, when I go sell like the Art Deco cat tree, we'll do one more sales receipt, then we'll jump into the settings for pass-through time and expense, etc. Well, let's just do an invoice, same kind of thing. If I'm doing that particular, Art Deco cat tree, it's going to come up with that rate. It's going to show me the default tax rate and the Beyond Basics discount because I'm in that time period, right? So we have price rules or levels, if you will. Right. The client doesn't see the drop down. So like if they buy 2 of them, we'll just keep it at 1 and we know it's at that default rate and they save it. We'll look at the, let me select the customer name. Here, Andre, never mind about the drawer. We'll get to that a little later if we have time. So I saved that. If I click, when I'm sending this to them, or print preview, it should just be the $102 in the sales tax. That's what they should see. The sales receipt or an invoice. However, here, when you do the transaction journal, this really helps, this little control. It's not a control Y, but anyway, there's a debit of 110.16 to AR, right? Cost of goods sold is 20. Inventory asset credited. Sale of product income 102, and there's that, right? So the promo's already involved. It's not at the 120 price. It was at 102 instead. So the client wouldn't see, right, the existing price. That would just be for you guys in the price rule list. Absolutely. And again, you can do custom prices as well, specifically for that. And I showed how you can filter for customer job or specific items. I just did it for all or nothing, but still. And the date ranges, and they can end, and it's cool. It's still beta, though, but by all means, try it out. It's in Plus, and it's in that sales setting. That's where they're going to go, just to tie this one off. And to Jane's point, to move on to some other stuff. Price rules. Turn it on, right? And you got quantity on hand for inventory. Okay? So the two-sided items thing, we'll cover that when we go more, service-based businesses. One other thing I wanted to mention, the starting value adjustment, because that will come into play, and thanks, Mario, for that question, where you can make a starting value adjustment, right? This is not like the ongoing periodic value adjustment in Pro or Premier or Enterprise. This is for when, hey, what do you put in this item? He put it at the wrong cost when he added it back in December 9th, so I'm going to go and change the initial cost to $9.95, as of, and you can backdate it, which is nice. This is not meant to be a thing that happens all the time. And though we default to OBE, which, we don't want. You don't want to hit opening balance equity. You choose something else. that would, be correct or whatever. And you guys would know that better than me, but try to stay away from OBE. I mean, I'm in the camp where I wish we'd remove all these beginning balance fields when you're setting up list elements, because you just see a bunch of stuff in opening balance equity, and you're just like, that's not really an account. Anyway, this is a value adjustment. It's not meant to be those ongoing ones, so I kind of like that about desktop, because you can do those ongoing value adjustments to factor in for labor and stuff like that. If you don't want to do build assemblies, it's a nice cheap trick for that. However, this is initial cost from now on, but it's going to impact all the forms that Tower Retreats is on, because it should have been $9.95. That should have been the starting value of my cost of the business. So it'll go back to $12.9 and update everything. So make sure, you're the one doing the starting value adjustment, right? You might have done their tax return. So maybe you're just going to do from 1/1/18 on and forward, right? So it doesn't impact prior periods. Anyway, so it's a starting value adjustment. Those are going to be rare. You can also do it from the inventory valuation report. There's an option for that. And then quantity on hand, do it, but really you should be doing transactions, right? Purchase order, enter bill or check or credit card charge. You're selling stuff. We're doing item-based stuff, right? Because the reports are more detail-oriented. It's like the whole point of these transactions is they're item-based, right? So when I'm going to sales by product and service detail, it's just I have that detail there, really helpful, no matter what my client industry is, right? So journal entries, rare, and obviously starting value adjustments, even more rare, and quantity adjustments. But they're there, and you can do them. So now you know that stuff. Let's move on to my other really favorite part of really QuickBooks in general is the light job costing. Again, let me qualify. For heavier estimate to actual needs, change orders, you want to track labor burden, those things just don't exist. There's workarounds, but those things don't exist natively canned in QBO Plus. I'm hoping we add at least estimate to actual, or even a markup column on estimate would be awesome. But I'm hoping, right, for your service-based businesses. Clearly, we're investing in your product-based businesses, right? We're doing stuff to inventory, like bundle items, quantity adjustment, starting value, SKU, price rules, categories. Those are all things in the last year and a half. But for things like build assembly and these other stuff that you don't have and other things I mentioned, that's when you're going to do a third-party app. Okay? Especially if your client wants to be mobile. If not, then they'll be on desktop until we have it. And that's fine too. I support both platforms. Anyway, going to account settings. Switching hats to like service-based industry, pass-through time expense, some job costing. Then we'll go to class and location tracking. That's important. And then that'll be it. Yeah, I already went here and showed you. This is going to be a plus thing. Two-sided items, but also if you want the customer field or the project field, if you will, on your cost forms to tag something to a customer so I can do a P&L buy or sub-customer, then you check off this box. Track expenses and items by customer. Because on the bill, check, and credit card expense that I have in QBO Plus, because I checked off this box, there's an items details section, not just account, but items. And I know my estimate that I'm starting with, and we'll go over a setting for that in a sec, is item-based. And so is the other sales forms. So I really need to use items and have the item detail on these cost forms. So I can check off this box. I want to tag it to a customer just for profitability buy. Or if I'm passing it through, billable, making it billable. This, you want to check off this box as well. Okay? And you can set a default markup rate. That's done here at this point. It's default for anything. So you might put a little one, and we'll look at that. I'll just do a 15%. I think that's pretty standard. Some do 25, 15. Right? So these are the ones you want to do for that. I'll click Save. And then the other one is time entry. I don't know if we'll do much with time entry. It's in Essentials and Plus, but you can add a service field to timesheets, right, to pass that through, and you can make it billable if you're passing time through to an invoice. Those are the other ones to consider for the light job costing. And what I mean by light is pass-through time material expense to an invoice, and the P&L by job or sub-customer. Those are canned reports. Plus is going to be, again, best for that. We'll go over class and location tracking in a sec. Right? So we have that. Now let's go look through a few other things that are important. Quick question from Roseanne, because it impacts inventory. We'll tie that off. How does inventory from desktop convert to QBO? How will the data be affected? Great question. Real quick answer. When you're converting, and the conversion tool sees that you have inventory turned on in preferences in the Pro Premier Enterprise file, you're sending it over, it'll ask you if you want to turn, it'll tell you it's FIFO, just to make sure you align on that, and you have to choose a FIFO date. Because what we're going to do is a journal entry adjustment impacting inventory, asset, and COGS, right? So that's why post-conversion we suggest a balance sheet and P&L all dates on accrual basis, not cash, because it might not match because of the adjustment we do from average cost to FIFO, right? So we do a journal entry adjustment. Your reports will still match on accrual basis, and all the inventory goes over, right? Not build assemblies, but if you're doing build assemblies, because that's not supported over there. But you'll have, your inventory items will come over, with the cost and the sales price and stuff like that, and the quantity on hand and things like that. That we've improved a lot, as how inventory goes from desktop to QuickBooks Online. You're going to be going to Plus. That's going to be best for all this stuff, of course. But it is going to do an adjustment for FIFO, and it's a journal entry adjustment that will impact cash basis reports. That's what I've seen. Right. So you'll see a pop-up for it. You choose a FIFO date, and typically from the friends I have in the industry and just what I know from doing this for so long is you usually choose the beginning of the tax year, but, again, those stuff I always leave up to you all. Now, let's go to, there's a thing I forgot in settings regarding to this. It's an advanced setting called projects, project financial tracking. This really supplants the sub-customer method. All right, so you have your customers. Let's start with sales, right? Then I'll show you some two-sided items, and then we'll do some pass-through time expense. Look at the delayed charge form. Then we'll look at a budget by a project you can use for budget to actual for those of you who are, not faint of heart, and that would be a method for a client. Again, estimate to actual reporting, that visibility, I would suggest, because all the time that's going to be needed to get it set up and manage it correctly, that you have to know that client can do that, and you'll know that client that can. But I would argue that it's probably a lot for most of your clients, so that's why I like third parties to solve for what's not in QBO. They're going to be spending way less time. All right, and then we'll look at a quick progress invoicing and go to class and location tracking. Plenty of time. We'll come in top of the hour. But when I go to customers, right, and you do have this kind of sub-customer method, right? Oh, let me go into a different file. Sorry. I have something canned in another file for this. I do have like the sub-customer method that I've been using, a Stacy Kildall trick, for years. And by the way, you can find this information on our website. I'm going to put it into, it is in the PowerPoint, but I'm going to put it into the chat right now and go to webinar so you have it. But there's a great, you can do a Control-F to search for it, but it's just called Stacy Kildall Famous Budget to Actual Job Costing Method. It's been updated for the new user interface. It's me doing the video. It's about 50 minutes long. But if someone does want to use and not have to pay for another app, but they really want to be mobile, okay, so they don't want Premier or Pro even, because Pro does this even really well. But you can create budgets per job or project, and then there's a budget to actual report. So as you tag expenses and costs to the job, right, you're going to start in revenue and stuff and start invoicing against the estimate, you're going to start seeing your budget to actual, quote-unquote, estimate to actual fill out. But it just requires a lot of management to get it, like, right and set up correctly. So it's not for the faint of heart, is what I'm saying. And that's where a third party helps. But I do know some people use it, and they love it. So they're used to it, though. The only other setting, by the way, hopefully you know how to duplicate the tabs. Forgot one thing, and we'll go back to customers. Estimates, we're going to start there. You do have an advanced setting for estimates, and this is where we'll put the progress invoicing one. It's there now for some. You have automation section, right? There was other stuff we can go through here, but this is how I typically leave this. So copy estimates to invoices, right? And I usually do pending or accepted, and then under this, for those of your clients that have it and they're using Plus, it'll say in beta, it'll have a beta flag in blue, and it'll say progress invoicing. So you can turn those on. That impacts estimates, so you can go from an estimate to an invoice. Right now, in most of your clients, it'll be all or nothing, so 100% of the estimate to the invoice. But soon, you'll be able to go in stages, okay? So I have customers here to go back. There's two different methods for the job costing, right? I can do just a sub-customer, right? And this is for when you want to bill with the parent. So you'd come in, you'd create another name, you would check off this box, the sub-customer, and you would choose bill with parent. In 99% of most cases, typically is the sub, because it's just an address or they put in or something like that. Rarely is the sub-customer going to pay. Typically the parent company is paying. So you want to do bill with parent. So when you go to the receive payment window, you see all the invoices from all the subs of the parent, right? That's basically the thinking there. And what I like about the sub-customer method is if you need a separate ship address or a separate bill address from the parent, this is when it's great to use a sub-customer method for the job costing. These are the customer fields you're going to be tagging on expense forms. So for this project 03, I need that detail, great. However, what we've been working on and implementing is this project section in the left-hand panel, something you can turn on like I showed in the advanced section. It has its own setting. And I did this project for today, right? Beyond Basics, this training. Now, there's not a lot of details in the project. I can add a bunch of notes, but that's it. There's no separate address or things like that, right? So if you need more of that detail, that's why I still prefer the sub-customer method with job costing. But projects, which is really designed to replace sub-customer, I like to use both, depending on the detail I need or the client needs, really. So already I have an estimate, right? You start with that. So the project center, which is really nice, it tracks the transactions of the project as well as I can add transactions to it. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to look at a P&L report and even a budget report and stuff and move on to class location. I know you've probably heard, well, maybe I'll use class tracking for job costing. I still prefer either the sub-customer or project because you get better detail reporting. Remember, and we'll get into this in a little bit, class tracking is not viable for balance sheet accounts for the most part unless it's journal entries. So you're not getting a great balance sheet by class in QBO because class is considered target. In a coding, target, source versus target, top of the form, bottom of the form. All journal entries are target lines, right? So that's why it would work for that. But when you run a BS by class and you're looking at an AP balance, you're not seeing the class broken out, right? Because AP is a source coding when you enter the bill. And that's the problem with balance sheet by class. P&L by class all day long. So I just like the sub-customer method or project for the job costing as opposed to those using classes to track jobs. No, I just don't even go there. Anyway, click on the estimate. This is my item-based contract, if you will. Right? For Bridget, see, notice it's a parent-child relationship. I got parent, colon, and the project, or sub-customer. In my case, I created a project for it because I don't need the separate address detail and all that stuff. Accounting consulting, these are two-sided items. I think we already talked about that. I don't need to go back and show that, right? So where you turn the purchasing on, that's all I'm saying. Plus offers that, but I love that for Plus over all the other SKUs we have available for QBO. You need the two-sided items in most cases if you're a service-based business. Why create a bunch of items when I can just create one that has both? Got it. Accountant consulting, right? Quantity, rate, the total amount. There's no markup column yet. This is all if we could just add that, it would be estimate to actual. Awesome. But anyway, I have tax prep and I have some telephone support. This is what they agreed to do. And I can create the invoice. In some, you'll be able to create progressively. But in mine, still, I don't have that ability, but it's coming. It's in beta. So I have the estimate. It's item-based, and those items are on there. Now, also, let me go duplicate. Might as well do all these at the same time. Because I want to see some budget versus actual to what's happening before we enter transactions from the project center, I did create a budget, right? So that's not a setting. You can just go to the gear icon, budgeting under tools, and though we don't have a balance sheet budget, it's just at the P&L level, but really this is all I'm needing. I did this budget yesterday, and I created a budget just for, I'll just run the overview report for Bridget O'Brien, and it's for the Beyond Basics, thing we're doing. And this is my overview for them, right, based on the estimate. So I had to have the estimate open in one window in order to create the budget, and then I had to have the items list open as well to see the cost. And so that's why, creating this can be problematic or time-consuming for a client, but if they're up for that challenge, you can do budget to actual. That's your estimate to actual. You just have to figure out what the cost of the business is for these hours and for these phases of the job, and then you come in and you fill out the particular budget, which is just a budget template, for the P&L accounts, the items linked to those accounts, obviously, right? And this is my overview. And I also have the, budget versus actual for this too. That's what I'm talking about, where you can get to more of the job costing. Now, the budget to actual we'll leave open here. I do have to filter, and then we'll come back to enter some transactions, see some profitability, et cetera. We're getting there. But you can filter this for a particular customer. This would be for Bridget, just so I can see what's been done versus what's been budgeted yet for the particular project. So I have nothing actual yet. It's all budgeted revenue and expense, but we'll leave this one open. Okay. So I have the estimate. Maybe we'll do one more tab. Let's do some transactional activity. From the project center, right, is how I got my open windows, as you probably already know that. We go over that in the ABP 101. But from projects, right, or I can use the plus sign when I drill into Beyond Basics. Maybe this would have been my first tab. You can add to the project, right? So I know what I've estimated. I hire out the subcontractors. Typically, we're going to go do, we'll just say it's a bill. Just so you can say, and this will actually kill a couple birds with two stones. And sorry if you're a bird fan. I got to find a different analogy for sure. But anyway, I'm going to choose the particular bake accounting that we use for this kind of stuff. And again, this is where I have two-sided items. So I have the item details, right? Account details, item details. And I can choose, based on the estimate, they did accounting consulting. I think we had what was that? 5 hours. Let's say they've already done 3 hours of that. That's going to be cost to me. And then we had the tax prep, right? We'll say they just did an hour of that so far. And then, they help us out with some telephone support as well. We'll say they've done four of the, that. This is a posting document. Now notice, the project gets tagged automatically. So when I go back to that budget, I should see some amounts in the actual column, right? If you're using the sub-customer method, let me do one other tab here. And let's say you were doing like a credit card expense or a time entry. Check, credit card expense, bill, I know they're different, but they're going to behave the same way with a project, auto-filling on the bill. And what this allows me to do is show it on a P&L and put it on the budget to actual report. It does not need to be billable. Let's make that clear. Billable is only if you're passing it through to an invoice. However, they already accepted the estimate, so I'm not actually going to be creating, I'm going to create the estimate from that, either progressively, depending if you have that feature or not. I'm going to turn billable off because there's no default setting for that. But I just want to tag this for the profitability of the job or the project or the sub-customer. I'm not passing it through, right? So that's important to mention. So I'll have that bill there. And then we'll go in here and if it's a sub-customer, for example, and say you're doing a time entry, single time entry, which time is non-posting, I know, but maybe you're moving the time to the check or something like that. Deborah Wood, she worked on this particular project. It'll be something different. But, I could go to the Bridget O'Brien one for sure. Time's only time until I put it on something posting. But I can choose the service item. Right, so they did some telephone support or something like that. Just to show you the time piece too, because it can be made to billable to pass through, or to just tag to the particular customer. Though it's non-posting, I won't see it on the P&L yet. But once I put this on a check, that's great. Now that brings up a good point. No, this time won't. Though the time will flow through to the paycheck and QuickBooks Online Payroll or the online full service payroll, the job tag will not. So that's, again, if you want to see labor burden, I suggest Notify or CoreCon. That visibility is faster, unless there's not many projects. You could do $0 journal entries, I guess, but still, you don't want your client doing those. You're doing those. But anyway, so in the cost form, time entries, you can tag these fields. That's why we turned on those settings if you're passing stuff through to an invoice. Now, let's go back to the project center. I think I had this report up to refresh and see how it's going. Yeah, so I'm starting to have some actual show up, and it tells me over budget or, whether what I'm in. So that's the budget to actual that's helpful. As I'm tagging expense, you'll start seeing it in the column. Oh, yeah, thanks, Meredith. Notify for residential contractors. CoreCon is for commercial contractors. And by the way, I did a I can't remember the month, but I did a co-present webinar with them, and all I did was cut out their part, because I'm going through stuff that I would have already showed during my section of the webinar, and then I handed it over to my partner there. And I don't work for them. I mean the person I was working with on the webinar, and they went in and they do a nice demo. So if you go to this website that I put in the chat area, you can go and watch these 30-minute, app partners. I think we have one even on SOS inventory and a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, CoreCon for commercial, Notify for residential contractors, and they can be found, right on apps.com. You can just go search and get another demo. They're great. If you have a residential contractor does roofing or something like that, then I do suggest Notify for that kind of thing. I'm not sure why that's showing up. It should. Notify. Yeah, there you are. Good. I just like the visibility right away. I don't have to do a workaround. That's it. All right, thanks. So cool. So we're starting to fill up the budget. That's good to know. Did time activity, got the bill. Right, so you're tagging things. It just opens this up. Just make sure if you want it billable or not, right? If you're going to pass it through, that's when you see the drawer open up on an invoice. And you see all this billable time or whatever. And then, I have the estimate, and then I can copy to invoice to finish off the story. The projects, if I go back to projects, hopefully I'll see more transactions linked to the particular project. Still that one. Oh, I think I might have tagged the wrong job. That could be possible. Let me show this, though. I'll go back to job 26, or the frame kitchen. I know. This is what it would look like. If you're using the project center, you'd see the transactions linked to it, the invoice, the estimate, time charge, any expense. Typically for these projects, you can go to, when you're on the project and click profitability, and it just goes to a P&L that's already filtered for the project itself. For Amy's, that's job 26, already filtered. I mean, you can always go to the P&L, and there's actually canned reports for this. We already have it. You don't need to use it. If you're used to the sub-customer method, keep going. We have projects here to kind of put things in a center, so you can do related transactions to it, and it's more of a visual thing. But all day long, you could go to Business Overview, and you could run a P&L by customer, right? And I can filter by the particular customer and date range, and then see what I have. Right? I can click Customize. I can go to Filter. I can go to Customer, and I can look for Bridget, or one of the other jobs I have, or something particular, that I have. Do both of these, and I should see like profitability, revenue versus expense. I haven't really entered much expense for that one. I think I tagged the wrong job in the bill, but that's the thing. Be careful with that. So I just proved that one. So there's that. The other thing to mention, I do have another realm I'm in, invoicing, progress invoicing. You'll see it. Here's what it would look like in one of Stacy's files. She just has it. She's part of the beta. But in accountant settings, same place, advanced, right? You'll see this enable progress invoicing beta. Okay, right under copy to estimates. Okay. Let's see, question from Meredith. How does the Project Center work with third-party apps like Bill.com, Tally, HubDoc? Do they have the sync option? I know they have jobs. I know they have sub-customers, right, where they can sync to that. Because Project is a list element different from a sub-customer, and not really supplanting it yet, because you see I had both sub-customer for some and I had Project. I don't know if they have added it to the QBO API they use from a development standpoint to pull in that data. My guess is they will. Yeah, so we use jobs and sub-customers a lot with these apps. T-Sheets will definitely pull those already. You should already be seeing sub-customers in there. But projects, I have not seen yet. I'm not in the apps a lot. But my guess is it's on their radar, because it's another list element they have to consider a field to put in. So my guess is it'll be there, particularly since for T-Sheets, I mean, we just bought them, right? So we own T-Sheets now. They're into a company. Anyway, back to progress invoicing. I created this estimate for us to KD for this stuff. I can create an invoice just so you can see this window. And we'll talk about class location tracking, and you guys can move on and get a sandwich or something. So this is just like Pro, Premier, or Enterprise, all right? Do I want to do total of the estimate? Do I want to just do like 50%? Let's just do that, of each line. It'll be 540, or a custom amount. Same three options you'll see within desktop if you're used to that and you're doing progress invoicing. So I can create the invoice, right? And it does it for the quantity. I can overwrite it here too, and here's going to be my invoice, right, that I created. And if I go back to the estimate, on the estimate we'll see the visibility, So 1,080, but invoice subtotal was 540, remaining subtotal 540. The visibility is on the transaction itself, the estimate or the invoice. And even on the invoice, I show the estimate total, this invoice 540, total invoice 540. So I have some visibility there. All right, finally, and we'll stay in cloud. Gear icon, accountant settings. For your nonprofits, a couple things. Customers, you can call them donors, right? If you want to show donor instead of client or customer, that would be for your clients or nonprofits. They might want to show that. Now, there used to be, I wasn't able to get it going, but when you choose the 990 form or religious grant type, industry type, it would change what the reports say from balance sheet to statement of financial position or P&L from statement of financial activity or whatever those are. And it would change invoice to pledge and sales receipt to something else. But that, I think with the new report refresh we're doing, I haven't seen that. So really for nonprofits, you're impacting donors. There is something an industry type though, they can turn. And then class location. Now important for those not initiated with this, and this will be like the last thing we talk about, and classes, right, and location. So two different types of these divisions, if you will. Location, it's one per transaction. And this works on the balance sheet and P&L. So I can do a balance sheet by location all day long. This is a great replacement for BS by class for QBO Plus for nonprofits. However, you can, on a bill, they're going to want to attach a location to every single line, to divvy it out by grant or fund or whatever. You can only do one location per transaction. And so location tracking's good, but only up to the point that your nonprofit client's like, yeah, I only need one line per bill. But that's, that's to me rare. Class, you can do, you have a couple options, one per entire transaction or one to each row in a transaction. But either way, it's target only for the coding. Source versus target, summary detail, top, bottom of form. Think of that, right? Kind of like desktop. So balance sheet activity, and I'll show you, for those that want to stay, that'll be the last thing I do as like a bonus thing. Balance sheet activity is going to be in the source area, but the classes are going to be down here. So when I run a balance sheet filtered by particular class, my AP is going to be 0. I'll be like, what? Right? Whereas a P&L, I'll see the income and expense. I'll see the COGS divvied out by class. So it's important qualification. So I typically do one to each row in a transaction, and then leave them like this. And then of course they're in the list, So I have, when you go to your all lists under the gear icon, yeah, class again. And again, Stephanie asked, can you give examples of class items versus location items in a nonprofit? Typically class they'll use for like location. Maybe this is a better way. Let me go to the all list and you'll see class and location list. So class and on a transaction. Let me show you what I mean. We'll just go to, I did one yesterday. I think I created a couple, BB1 and BB2. I created 2 of these classes, just list elements there. And then I also have some locations as well. Let's go do a bill, because I think this is a good example for class versus location. And we'll say, pretend I'm a nonprofit and I'm purchasing something from, some expense, and we'll just use an account even, don't even worry about items, but we'll say it's something for, that we're going to purchase from them and we're going to attach it to a fund. So let's say it was $2,000, forget job, forget all this stuff. And by the way, they can turn all this stuff off, right, in settings. They're not passing stuff through. I can just have it be class. See, class can be for every line because I've showed it that way. And I'll do another one for something else. It was some kind of business and license fees. That's also going to be $1,500, and that's for BB2 because I'm using funds, typically fund grant. But for the larger program 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the larger umbrella is, that's what I'm using for location. Because this is in the source area, summary, detail, target, P&L, typically balance sheet. This is important to remember for reporting. Maybe we should just take, and then for anybody that's not interested, please, you've reached the end. I'll make sure your account manager gets that you were here today and in the recording, and thanks for coming. But let's just dive into this source versus target thing and class and location tracking because it could help down the line. But if you need to jet to something else, we pretty much finished what we were going to go over today. Hopefully it was helpful, and thanks for coming. But I'll keep the recording going. So we saved this bill. Yep, thank you, Tammy. And then if we go to save, I'm sorry, I already saved it. And I'm attaching the class and the location, right? If I go to more, and you can do this with revenue too, like an invoice or a sales sheet, but let's just do a bill because that's typical, right? Your nonprofits can do this. You're going to want to do a class per line. A balance sheet by class is not going to pick up the 2,000 and the 1,500. It's not going to see it because the AP is where? Let's go to the transaction journal. And this report really explains it for me. The top line of the transaction journal, by the way, is source, always. Unless you're doing a journal entry because they're always target. And then you have, the expenses, or let's say it was a revenue form, the revenue, whatever, is, credit or debited. I'm going to add class and location. This will be helpful. We're going to add class and location to the report. Notice on the top line, which is what the balance sheet's going to look at, mind you, class is blank because class is coded at a target level in QBO. Now, I'm not saying the balance sheet by class is awesome in desktop by any means. It's a pain, okay? You have to do a lot of work to get that viable. However, in QBO Plus, it's not viable at all, okay? And it's important to know that because you have nonprofit clients. And say, hey, if you just need a P&L by class, awesome. If you need a balance sheet by class, well, we either have to use location tracking because, look, location shows up on all lines, source and the two target lines, right? So let's do the balance sheet, though, just for fun. And we'll do it for today. And then we'll filter by, let me customize here, today and then those two classes. Filter class, because I still can. And we're going to do BB1 and BB2 and run the report. But here it is. I show the income, net income, right, that I would see on that under retained earnings and stuff for equity. But liabilities, the AP doesn't show, right? So that's the thing. On a P&L, though, but the location would work. Remember if that's going to still be there? So if I filter by the location, any location, I forgot which one I did. Was it Texas? I think it was. Let's do location, and we'll do Texas. Was it program? No, I think it was Texas. And accrual, maybe not. Anyway, location would show up with the amount. Now, P&L, though, all day long. Okay? We can run specifically, if I go back to all reports or P&L by class, right? And I choose today and run the report, accrual, right? I'm going to see the expense under BB1 and BB2, right? So profit and loss by class, great. Profit and loss by sub-customer, customer, project, great. Balance sheet by location, yes, but not at the class field. But you're going to at the class level. So important to know that, so you have your discussions with that. That's more of a source target issue. They cover that in the advanced certification, by the way, for QBO. But now you know when you're talking with nonprofits what would be viable or not. And then hopefully we'll address things like that. But that's really class location tracking. You're going to, and the breakdown and the reporting and where you're filtering. Let me go back to this deck just to make sure you guys have your resources and the other webinars. I wanted to thank everybody. I'm going to stop the recording now.